It's the summertime, Andrew, and you know what that means. Of course, everyone knows what that means. Sales on physical media and movies. Seems like a lot of outlets and studios and boutique Blu-ray labels are putting their movies on sales. Most wonderful time of year. What have you picked up recently, Andrew?
I actually just got like a huge delivery the other day from a bunch of different sales because Barnes and Noble is doing several sales. I got some from the Criterion sale. I got some from the Radiance sale, and I got some from another cult film sale that they are doing. On the Criterion side of things, the big new release this month for everybody is Sorcerer. That's the big upgrade this month. The William Friedkin classic starring Roy Scheider, Bruno Cremer, and Francisco Rabal, and amazing soundtrack by Tangerine Dream. It is one of the most tense movies you'll ever watch. It's a remake of a film called The Wages of Fear. Although Friedkin says it's not, even though it kind of is. Anyway, that one's on its way. Haven't gotten it yet, but it's a fantastic movie. So Sorcerer is like the big one everybody was like really stoked for. The other ones I got were Night Moves, Gene Hackman. They just did a 4K of that. And then I got The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, which is by Jacques Demy with music by Michel Legrand. Don't really know anything about it. Just know that it's a musical and that it's apparently very colorful and very well done. And as with all things, I saw someone talk about it on the Criterion Closet, and I was like, cool, I guess I should own that. And then I got Paris, Texas, by Wim Wenders, starring Harry Dean Stanton. Just a wonderful drama. And then I did an upgrade for Brazil, the Terry Gilliam film Brazil, which...
I mean, that's in 4K. I feel like that's a movie that you're going to want. Well, yeah, I'm saying you upgraded Brazil. That's a movie that you specifically you would want to watch in 4K.
Yeah, absolutely. And then after you watch Brazil, you can rewatch Batman 89 and see where Tim Burton stole the aesthetic from. No disrespect, but it's
inspired.
It's even
inspired by influence.
It's almost like watching Heat than watching The Dark Knight, just being like, hey, wait a minute. It's the same idea, but I also got 3 from the cult film sale. I finished I got 3 films by Jean Rollin. He is a French filmmaker, bit of a cult classic kind of guy, but he did a lot of stuff that was considered in, I guess they called it the fantastique genre, which was kind of like a surface level story that the kind of fantasy kind of infringes upon, versus kind of being like a strict fantasy setting. Did a lot of vampire movies, but this group, Powerhouse Films / Indicator, has been going back and remastering all of his films in 4K. So I filled in some gaps there with The Iron Rose, Girls Without Shame, and The Escapees. He's a very interesting person to read about. He has highs and lows in his career. Makes regular films, makes adult films. When I guess non-adult film offers dried up, just flipped back and forth, did whatever he needed to do. Had no issue.
Is that the name of the adult film? Flip back and forth?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a whole series. But anyway, so I've been very fascinated reading about him, and I was just curious about some of these movies. I've watched some of the vampire ones. Another one he did called Fascination, and they're a trip. I don't even know if I really like them, but it's one of those things where, like...
But you support the fact that they exist in the world.
The fact that somebody is putting this care and putting together this packaging, because they're also really nice. Like, they're like hard stock, like, cases, nice booklets with tons of background information. They do new special features. It's a level of care that you kind of wish every filmmaker gets, and a lot of stuff in the Criterion Collection is like that. But so I've got
this
those
is all
3.
This Criterion, the Barnes and Noble pickups. You order these online? Is that what you said? You said you're waiting for them to come in the mail.
Sorcerer, I'm waiting for the mail.
Isn't that a shame? Because I haven't dove into the Criterion sale yet. I need to. I'll probably pick up a few, but one in particular I need to pick up because we will be covering it on this podcast. I mean, we're covering a Criterion movie coming up on this podcast as a little hint. And it's one of the 1,500 movies in the Criterion collection we're going to be covering, folks. but I've got to order it online, which I hate because the closest Barnes and Noble has like 2 shelves of Criterion. Houston used to have a really nice big Barnes and Noble with a giant media section. They got remodeled earlier this year, and that also got reduced to just a few shelves. So the ones I need are not in stock local stores, and I got to order online. It's a bummer. I can't just go browse shelves and get surprised by movies and get that instant gratification. And yeah, I won't go on a huge rant about this, but it's a bummer that it's basically online only, depending on what you're looking for.
I went to a Barnes & Noble yesterday. There's actually a very famous, there's this spot in downtown Chicago. It's right near Wicker Park, but it was a bank that got turned into a Walgreens, and the Walgreens like utilized the bank vault as part of its design. And then that closed down, and Barnes & Noble bought it and opened a new store like in downtown Chicago, which is just super awesome. But I did go look at it. They do have a media section. It is smaller, but like just not a lot of selection. And there are a couple around the suburbs that have a pretty good phase. There's one out in a place called Geneva that's got a really good media section. So I'll probably take at least one trip out there this month. But there's tons of sales. There's tons of physical media. Arrow will probably be running a sale next month. But Arrow's already running a sale on their website too. The Barnes & Noble sale will just be 50% off. But yeah, it's the summer of... The joke I was making was that, you know, the Criterion sale runs twice a year. It runs in July and then again in like November, December. So it's like Christmas in July and then like Christmas at Christmas. However you want to put it. But but Barnes and Noble, and then like Kino Lorber is always running a sale too. And like it's always funny because these things are called sales. And then for a lot of people, these are what the prices should be like to start. And then the sales should be lower, but it's always wild that the Criterion sale, like you go on social media, people are counting down to the Criterion.
I mean, I would never pay full price for a Criterion movie, ever. Why would anybody do that? Yeah, I'm excited to dive into it though. The only thing I've picked up so far is the Adam Elliott collection. Holding it up right now, one of my favorite animators, a label I've never heard of in Australia, put together all of his films and his short films. I owned a few of them, but this has the newest one, Memoir of a Snail, which I'm excited to watch. And most people probably know Mary and Max if they know any of his movies. So it was on Netflix for a while, years back, pretty popular. But man, I love movies. You love movies. That's why we have a movie podcast, and that's why it's time to bring in that theme song.
We're not talking about the best of them. We're just talking about the rest of them.
Not the worst parts, but the best parts. And the best parts, we have the best of the rest.
Hello and welcome to Best of the Rest. My name is Chris Logan, and I am joined, as always, by my marvelous co-host, Andrew Williams. Say something to the listeners, Andrew.
Something to the listeners.
Each week, we take a second look at a movie that was poorly received upon release and challenge ourselves to only talk about the things we like and what the movie does well. It's Comic Book Movie Month, and this week we are talking the 2023 film, The Marvels. Andrew, this movie's not very old, just a couple of years ago. What is your history with this film? Did you catch it in theaters?
I did. I see almost all the stuff in theaters. But I did see this one in theaters, and it's definitely one of the ones where I did the Principal Skinner moment of just like, is it me or is it the children who are wrong? And I was like, it's definitely the children. But
like unironically.
Yeah, where I watched this, thought it was a blast, had such a good time watching it, and then like looked around and saw that it was like a really middling reception, and that like the box office was like one of the first MCU films that like didn't break even, and I was just like, this one, really? I was like, this seems like the oddest one of all of them to be the one that like suddenly people don't turn up for. And there's
Not
probably a lot of
since-
reasons for that, but
Not since The Last Jedi have I walked out of a movie theater like smiling ear to ear, only to open up my phone to see the discourse and a fist comes out of my phone and punches me in the face. Is the analogy I've made before?
Yeah.
It's like baffling. And we'll talk about the reception and maybe our reasons for why it is in the intro. Once we talk about the movie, we're leaving all that behind talking about the movie. But I do want to say up front, like, if you don't like this movie, someone listening didn't enjoy this movie, that's fine. Like, I don't think anybody that is crazy for not enjoying it, but we'll talk about it. There's maybe some more stuff going on here. But yeah, not everyone has criticisms of this movie. Is going to fall into some of the categories we may be discussing, but it's one of those clunky things. But let's set the stage here a little bit. The movie is released November 10th, 2023. It's made on a budget of over $300 million. 307 is the reported budget after tax credits, but it's as much as $370 million before that. Huge budget. It's just kind of what the MCU has ballooned to.
That seems insane to me. That just seems nuts to me. Like,
it's wild. It's like, I mean, no movie should be made for $300 million. I'll die on that hill. But sometimes, like Avengers movies, the amount of actors and stuff that goes into it, like I at least get it. I see the path there. But something like this, balloons, or like Tangled was one of the most expensive movies ever made. Like sometimes I'm just like, nothing against that movie, but why? Why that movie? It's wild. And it's not helped by the fact that worldwide, this movie only makes $206.1 million. Lowest worldwide gross in the MCU. Which, again, this movie, of all movies, this one?
Yeah,
this is the lowest gross. It's wild. It doesn't even hit $100 million domestically. Critically, I think it's decent reviews. It holds a 62% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, certified fresh. And Andrew, I was kind of pleasantly surprised to see the audience score is 79%.
as was I. Which is about where I thought this movie was going to kind of land after everything I saw. Like, yeah, it's nothing, nothing earth-shattering, but you've got, plenty of stuff to like. I figured high 70s was going to be accurate, but yeah.
The movie is written basically in-house at Marvel. So we have 3 credited writers. We have Nia DaCosta, our director, we'll talk about more in a moment, as well as Megan McDonnell and Elisa Karasik, both staff writers at the MCU. Megan mostly known for their work on WandaVision, and Elisa on Loki.
This is definitely looks like a situation where we were, and given that, Monica's character came out of WandaVision and Miss Marvel came out of the Miss Marvel show, it makes sense that some of the in-house TV staff was kind of brought in to work on these, especially as the time this was presumably heading for a different location than it ended up going. It's multiverse stuff, but this is, I still think, when we were in the Kang era. But yeah, and this is one of those things that, there's been some criticisms that this is where we start, and one of the things that gets kind of pointed to is that this is one of the first movies that like really pulled in a lot of TV stuff.
Yeah.
And that was definitely something people pointed to as potentially one of the problems, where like people in the trailers just kind of saw, oh, that was the person on that show, and that was the person on the other. I didn't see any of those, so I'm just not going to go watch this, which is
It's stuff
not
in the
invalid.
soup.
It's
a factor in what happens in this movie.
It's
ultimately,
not it's not something you can just dismiss, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like, do I think you get everything you need watching the movie? Yes, but I cannot fault someone at all for like looking at the trailers and being like, I don't know who any of these people are. And if you're not the biggest fan of Captain Marvel, it's probably not helping. So I can't fault anyone, but yeah. So Alyssa and Megan definitely some in-house Marvel people. Alyssa also goes to work on Lessons in Chemistry, which is an Apple TV series starring Brie Larson. So continued that working relationship there, which I think is cool. That was around the same time this came out, and Megan McDonnell would go on to work on Agatha All Along, and is apparently also a writer on the upcoming Vision Quest show, which is still supposedly coming out. And we'll see. One of those things where, like, when the shows for Marvel come out, it feels like it's a lot more... It's not nearly as heavy as it used to be. They've definitely cut that back from what it used to be. So
I do think they've officially announced that Vision Quest is the last one that will be entangled with the movies, which is... It's a weird thing, Andrew. I think we talked about this before, but maybe not on mic. But I remember vividly whenever, like, Marvel MCU shows on Disney Plus were announced, someone asked Kevin Feige how integrated the TV shows were going to be with the movie universe, because this is pretty hot off the heels of the Netflix Marvel shows, which was like a one-way street as far as their connection to the movies. There's definitely
at least at
separated.
the time,
Yeah, and that's a whole other thing. But he said totally and completely, and people like cheered. Like, this is awesome. You know, TV shows in the same universe, characters go back and forth. People were so excited for that, and I think that enthusiasm carried through those early ones, like, you know, WandaVision and then Doctor Strange. People seemed on board, but you get to a point here with the Marvels where it's now a problem that characters introduced in TV shows are showing up in a movie, and you've got this announcement that they're going to stop doing that, and now people are metaphorically cheering for that. Like, oh, good, I don't need to do this homework and watch these TV shows. I think the MCU just has growing pains right now. Like, you know,
growing pains was... There's also a greater point here that the fans of the MCU are not a hive mind. There are definitely people who were stoked about the notion of everything being connected. It reminds me a little bit of the issue with something like the Ultimate Universe. When the Ultimate Universe launches,
this is comic books.
Fresh, new. The Ultimates, yes. The Ultimates was a line at Marvel that they have launched and now relaunched and relaunched and relaunched several times. The new version is quite good, I will say, but is wrapping up soon. I think that was always the intention. But the original Ultimate Universe launched with Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, eventually Ultimate Fantastic Four, and then also the Ultimate. It was 4 books, but it was brand new, surface level introductions, new versions of these characters, plenty of crossover, plenty of similar things, but it was designed to be this new entry point without the baggage of, 50 years of publishing history. But the problem is the Ultimate Universe eventually runs for 10 years. So you get to the point where you have to ask, what makes this different?
How is this any more approachable than the Prime universe?
Exactly. And so I think the MCU is a little bit running into that, where just you've got this burden of stuff that's come before. So as you introduce more and more new things, there is this increasing hesitance of people that are like, well, I don't know what this is. I don't know what that is. I didn't watch this thing. There's a lot of other things you could point to.
How do you reward people that have watched 30 plus movies and TV shows, but not alienate people that haven't? And
even if you're working to not alienate them, you still have that inherent bias, though, that's difficult to overcome. Where, like, the Marvels, like I just said, I think you get everything you need to know in this movie, and you can say that as much as you want, but is that making the audience take a chance? And there's a
and that's also,
too,
I don't want to speak for you, but that's hard for me to say. Like, I watched WandaVision, I watched Miss Marvel, I knew these characters, I knew Kamala's family. So it's hard for me to put myself in a position of, what if I knew nothing about these two characters? Would I be satisfied with the summary I get in this movie? It's kind of hard for me to say. And if someone is in that position and that is a criticism of theirs, I can't really say, no, that's invalid, because that wasn't my viewing experience. So I don't know. It's a weird thing. And again, speaking to like the MCU fandom isn't hive mind. Some people like the connection with TV shows, some people don't. It's also worth noting that the MCU fandom doesn't matter if your goal is to make $1 billion at the box office with every movie, because you need a lot more people than just the MCU fandoms. You need people that can hop in at any point because that hero looks cool, or they know who that character is, or they want to see a sequel. You've got to court a much wider audience. So, yeah, interesting time for the MCU. We'll be able to talk about that a little bit more throughout this episode, but I want to talk about this director, Andrew Nia DaCosta. Director so fresh on the scene that we can go through their entire filmography. So fresh on the scene. Nia, she was born in 1989. You feel that in your back, Andrew? Your lower back?
I did. I felt it in my back.
I've been sitting in this office chair too long. I got to stand up and get blood flowing.
I gotta. Oh, dear God.
She first receives critical acclaim with her movie Little Woods, released in 2018. Independent film, low budget. She writes and directs it. Stars some impressive cast: Tessa Thompson, Lily James, and Lance Reddick, among others. This gets the attention of Jordan Peele, who taps her to direct his Candyman remake that he produces that comes out in 2021. Then she gets tapped to do The Marvels, just shooting her way up the ranks. Obviously, the MCU is looking for a female director for this project. I mean, it's starring 3 female heroes. We have a female, but like it makes a lot of sense to bring in someone with that point of view to direct this film. And with her star power blowing up, it seems like a perfect fit. And also gets to be the first Black woman to direct an MCU movie. Great. Like, I'm so excited to continue to like watch this career evolve. Even though I gotta say, I have not seen Little Woods. I would like to. I still haven't watched Candyman either. I think you've seen that one, but this seems like an exciting career to watch. She was a guest on an episode of Blank Check, I believe. It's probably the most I've other than seeing this movie, the most I've heard from her. But it just seems like an exciting voice to watch in the industry.
Yeah, and she's got 2 upcoming projects. One is a film called Hedda, based off the play Hedda Gabler by Henrik Ibsen. Very, very old play, but that's her reteaming. So that's Nia DaCosta writing and directing, reteaming with Tessa Thompson to bring that play to the stage. But then, she will be doing
that play to the screen,
later
Andrew,
sequel.
from the stage.
Yes, from the stage to the screen. I'm sorry. But then she will be doing 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, the sequel to 28 Years Later, set for release in January. Which she's not write. That is written by Alex Garland, but she will be directing that, and it will be picking up off of where 28 Years Later. Won't say anything else. But
okay, hang on. No spoilers, of course. But catch me up, because again, I'm a dad. It's hard to go to the movies, especially R-rated movies. I don't see a lot of stuff these days. Yeah. Candyman and 28 Years Later. What are your thoughts on these movies, Andrew? Spoiler-free thoughts.
Candyman I liked quite a bit, if only because there is some real lows in the Candyman franchise. People will talk about that first one being like one of the most iconic horror movies of all time. Tony Todd's performance being one of the most iconic performances of all time. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. Tony Todd, Virginia Madsen, very, very well done, based off a short story by Clive Barker, I believe. Candyman 2 and 3? A little less so. A lot less so. A lot more so. They're not good. Hashtag
okay. Sure.
So at bare minimum, with Candyman, I think you get a very competent attempt at putting in a new installment of that, kind of adding some lineage to it. I liked it a lot. I know there were people that were kind of a little bit more indifferent to it. They kind of wanted a little bit more, they wanted more Tony Todd, this or that, whatever. But I liked it quite a bit. I think it tells a really interesting story that tries to kind of look at this. It takes Candyman and kind of asks this, like, because the story of what happens to the original Candyman is very iconic, and it kind of asks that question of, like, what if that wasn't the only time that happened? And so it kind of adds this legacy aspect to it. And doing that kind of retroactively can be difficult, but I think Candyman rides a very fine line, and Jordan Peele does co-write that, and I think his hand being there is a good way to do it. And so I like Candyman quite a bit. And 28 years later, I love it.
I've heard nothing but great things.
I'm not going to say a little bit for me that like 28 years later was a little similar of like, I came out of that and I felt like I heard people that were like, this was so stupid. Like, they, you know,
really? Is some blowback on that movie?
There is some blowback on it. Like like the audience score on it is actually, much more mixed. I want to look real quick just to make sure I'm not losing my mind. Yeah, so the Rotten Tomatoes is 88. The audience score is 63.
Interesting.
So significantly less. It does. I don't want to say too much more about it, but I really, really liked 28 Years Later. I just, I won't say anything else about it.
Can you tell me? Can you say, because you text me this, how you felt about apparently a certain scene, just so people that have seen it can be like, oh yeah, I know what he's talking about.
What?
Never mind.
No. Hold on. I don't think I quite understood what you asked there.
Didn't you say there was a specific scene that like left you erect in that movie?
Oh yeah. Like possibly the most emotionally devastated I've ever been watching a movie.
Yeah. No spoilers. I just wanted you to acknowledge that, so that listeners that have seen it can be like,
there's another scene that people, I don't know if you've seen people calling it out or putting out their weird little
I have not.
Non-spoiler spoilers, but there's another scene that like people are pointing to as like, what? But no, there's a scene in 28 Years Later that is one of the most emotionally devastating things I've ever watched.
Beautiful. Can't wait to watch it.
And then I had to drive home. It was horrible.
I just now got around to seeing Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, which is like my favorite franchise. I saw it a month after its release, but had a great time with that, for the record. But we don't need to do a big deep dive right now, Andrew. We have a different movie to talk about. We have a superhero movie to talk about, The Marvels, and it's time to dive in, talk about everything we like, all the positives. Are you ready?
Yeah.
When Carol Danvers, Kamala Khan, and Monica Rambeau discover that their powers are entangled, causing them to swap places when they use them, they team up to find out why it's happening. This leads them to Dar Ben of the Kree, who is in possession of a powerful, potentially reality-altering weapon, and has a vendetta against Carol for causing the collapse of her home world. The super team, known as the Marvels, must learn to work together and stop Dar Ben from ending worlds to save her own. And that's it. I mean, you got Nick Fury thrown in there, a few other side things, but these three characters get thrown together against their will. They got to team up against one villain, and the villain has my favorite kind of backstory where you're like, oh, I see where you're coming from. I just disagree with the way you're doing it. We got a good time. And perhaps best of all, Andrew, the runtime of this movie is 1 hour and 45 minutes. In a superhero movie? In a superhero sequel? Beautiful. Love
That's another thing that people have been pointing to with like some of these MCU sequels is that these runtime, it used to not be uncommon that, a Thor movie was going to be 2.5 hours, but I think Love and Thunder had the similar runtime of just at 2 hours. And I think even Fantastic Four maybe is right at 2 hours. And there's people that are like, it's a lot of story for 2 hours. Like 2 hours is plenty of time. Like this idea that like this idea that like 2 hours is not enough time. I was like, no. Avengers Doomsday, okay, you can be 3 hours. You've got a lot of characters, you've got a lot going on, you got a lot to do. That's fine. Doomsday, Secret Wars, you can be 3 hours. This, no. Like Thunderbolts, I don't know how long Thunderbolts was. I suppose I could look, but like Thunderbolts,
well, that is an Avengers movie, Andrew.
It is, but it is, but
I just love saying that. You know, I
am
think
so annoyed by
I
that.
don't know if this is a hot take or not.
127 minutes. 127 minutes for Thunderbolts. So even Thunderbolts, just
Pretty good.
over 2 hours.
Andrew, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but famously, after its first weekend in movie theaters, the MCU marketing team revealed that Thunderbolts, it's had this asterisk in the title the entire marketing time, is actually the new Avengers. And people are quite upset for that being revealed after just a few days in theaters because not everybody had a chance to go see it yet. And that is revealed at the end of the movie. Spoilers, but whatever. The Marvel's already done it.
Yep.
My hot take is, look, I understand people being upset because I had not seen it at the time. And I was also like, wow, you're really showing a lot. But then I saw the movie. I'm like, well, my experience was not impacted by the MCU announcing this. I think they should have done it like the Thursday before release. They should have done it right before it released as the last push of the marketing to like, hey, look, this is actually what the movie is. And then how can you be people would still find a way to be upset about it, but I think it would have been much less so rather than letting it be out for just a couple of days, because then you have this people feeling like they missed out on an experience. What do you think?
I think that would have been really, really cool. That, like, you know, they gave you like Thursday morning, they just revealed that it's actually New Avengers, and it's interesting because I see both sides of it. Like, just obviously in the movie, it's a big reveal that this team is actually the New Avengers, or will become the New Avengers, and
also I guess I won't say anymore. I won't say anymore.
But either way, like, I think revealing it before, like right before, could have been interesting, or just, like I said, leaving it. Like, it's one of those things where, like, everyone's going to be upset no matter what. But
yeah,
like I said, it doesn't really impact the viewing to know that they become the New Avengers, because here's the thing: most people had already guessed that's what it was anyway. Like, most people had guessed that it was going to be something Avengers. Like, a lot of people were guessing maybe they were going to be the Dark Avengers, but, like, they're not going to call them the Dark Avengers. In universe, like, calling them the Dark Avengers doesn't make any sense. Like, in the comics, you know, in the aftermath of Secret Invasion, when Norman Osborn kind of found himself as, like, the face of Marvel Universe and became, like, Iron Patriot, he had a team called the Dark Avengers that was basically just the Thunderbolts parading as the Avengers, like, literally, like, in some cases, like, putting on different costumes to play as members of the Avengers. Like, he was Iron Patriot, and there was a Venom that they just called Spider-Man, and all sorts of stuff like that. But, like, but they didn't call them, they weren't called the Dark Avengers to the public, though. It was just called that for us because we knew they were the bad guys. Like, they didn't go out and be like, we're the Dark Avengers, and everyone was like, huh? It's not like John Cena in Bumblebee where he's like, they're called Decepticons. It's in the name, guys. Like, but so everybody had kind of assumed that it was going to be something like that they were going to be the Dark Avengers, or like the government-sponsored Avengers, or whatever. So, like, I don't know that, like, holding it back necessarily, like, saved anything, but, like, the movie experience is so insular to specific actions and moments with the characters that it's not impacted by knowing this is where it goes. It does wrap up a lot of plot. It does, you know, bring in a lot of those disparate, like, Earth level plot lines together, which I think is something a lot of people. It's interesting that, like, Thunderbolts to me is the kind of movie MCU fans have been asking for a long time, where they're like, doesn't feel like anything matters. It just feels like everything's all disconnected. It doesn't feel like we're building towards anything.
I feel like it grabs 5 threads and points them in the same direction. Which is what
I think they were always going to do with this. Like, they were always going to pull them together, but people got impatient and were like, oh, it's not happening fast enough. And I'm like, oh, we'll get there. And then they did. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Thunderbolts.
No, we're here to talk about the Avengers.
The Avengers.
We're here to talk about the Marvels. We're here to talk about the Marvels. And before we get to the scenes of this film, you know what we're going to do. We're talking about this cast, starting with the high point, best casting, best performance of the film. Because every week we recognize one person who goes so far above and beyond the Call of Duty, they actually elevate the quality of the entire film with their performance. We recognize the person by giving them the Mark Strong Award. Why did I make that explanation so long? Andrew, kick us off. Who is getting your Mark Strong Award for the Marvels?
This is a tough one because I think a lot of our leads have really great chemistry. I think There's a lot of really, really fun stuff happening here. Like there's just it's a fun movie. But I'm going to be going with Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan as my Mark Strong for the Marvels.
Also getting my Mark Strong award. No disrespect to the rest of this cast, was not a very difficult decision for me though.
No, not at all. The youngest Mark Strong award winner. We ever given it to any kid?
Oh, that's a great. There's no way to check. Let me just go ahead and say that.
There's
I have
no
no
way
idea.
To check, unfortunately.
Off the top of my head, I mean, did Jake Lloyd pick up a Mark Strong award? We talked about him twice, Andrew. Did either time did he get a?
I know
Mark
I
Strong?
didn't give it to him for Jingle All the Way.
Okay.
Jingle All the Way. We know who the Mark Strong of Jingle All the Way is. That one I can't check because I know who I gave it to.
Yeah, Sinbad, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I would guess this is our youngest Mark Strong award winner.
If not, pretty close. Anyway, she plays Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, and just the sheer enthusiasm that she has playing this character is just indescribable, and it comes through on the page, on the screen, to a high degree. She's just a massive fan of the character already. She's even written some Kamala Khan comics in the aftermath of this, which I think is super cool.
Very cool.
So, but there's an enthusiasm she has for that. Like she's just excited at being with these other characters about teaming with Captain Marvel and Captain Rambeau, Monica, whatever her name is. Does she get a code name by the end of this? I don't remember.
They never say it. I mean, it's Photon, right? Like, isn't that where we're supposed to be going with this? But that's
eventually what the character the character's actually had like several names. She was called Captain Marvel at one point. She's been Photon, Pulsar, Spectrum, a variety of different things. But Photon, I think, is where I guess they were gonna go. I don't know. But anyway, there's just this infectious energy that Iman brings to playing this character. You can tell that she's super excited to just be a part of this. And that's a fine line because, there's been instances where fans get to be in things and it just doesn't work. And like being a fan of something is not necessarily a recipe for success that you're able to do something interesting. Like something I point to all the time, and I take no joy in this, is that J. Michael Straczynski, a very prolific writer of television, comics, books, everything, is like a lifelong, unabashed Superman fan. And that man got to take on a Superman comic, and it was one of the most boring things I'd ever read. The hashtag PP, but the point simply being that like the infectious enthusiasm he had for being for Superman did not translate into being able to write a compelling Superman story. And there's plenty of other instances of that where somebody's like, oh man, I'm such a fan. It's so exciting to be a part of this. And you're just kind of like, sometimes the fans should be fans. But in this case, not just is she a fan, but she's able to parlay that into a genuinely great performance, genuinely great chemistry with all of the other leads, and just works in spades. So it's because I don't just want to say that like it's exciting because she's a fan. It's much more than that. It's being able to take all the pieces and put them together, and she's able to do that super well. And I can only hope that this is not the last we've seen of her as this character. I can only presume it won't be, but I
mean, this is legitimately some of the best casting the MCU has ever done. Like,
yep.
Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man is like S tier, probably, a tier all on its own. Right before that, them finding him on for Kamala Khan it's so perfect. The energy she brings to this character, obviously this character where representation matters very much because that is so much of who this character is. And in comics, I would say probably Marvel's second most successful legacy character ever. Like Miles Morales has to be number one, but probably followed by Miss Marvel, who's become like one of the most popular characters. And that's, for legacy characters, that's kind of rare. Most of them kind of come and go. But a huge deal in the comics. I think they've transitioned to the screen. As far as casting, could not be better. Her energy, her enthusiasm, her... I mean, it's very much like Tom Holland as Peter Parker, like a young kid in this crazy world all these people he looks up to and is just excited to be there. There's such an infectious enthusiasm. I will say, hashtag PP, there's been some controversy about the change to her powers, and I kind of get that. Like, it's a little baffling to me that they changed from her embiggen powers to this light thing they have going on. It seems... I don't know why you do that. I think it does not help the character. It's kind of, I don't know, it's weird. Like, for the most part, I don't mind the changes they make from comic books to screen. Most of the time, they make costumes more like tactical. Like, Falcon doesn't have actual feathers on his wings and stuff. And most of that stuff, I kind of get it. But they have gotten a lot better about being more not ashamed to be comic book, be more bright. Even like a character like Wanda goes from just being called Wanda, and she wears like a red corset, to finally getting like a crown and being called Scarlet Witch. Like, we've seen that evolution of them kind of embrace it more. Fantastic Four is coming up. It looks like they're really diving into that comic book look. So this feels a little late in the game for them to like back away from having comic accurate powers. And I don't know why they do that, but maybe we just need to be patient, because similar things are said about Spider-Man. Like, why is Iron Man so involved with him early on? Why is he not in New York? And then we get this, I think, a wonderful 3-movie arc that lands him where in the classic Spider-Man territory. So maybe Kamala will eventually get her embiggen powers. Sorry for the long rant there. Andrew, you have any strong thoughts about her powers on screen?
Nope.
Great. Great casting. Mark Strong Award winner. I love her in this movie. We'll talk about her much more as we go through scenes, but let's talk about the rest of this cast. We have Brie Larson returning as Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel herself, and this is probably not a hot take, but I think this is definitely her best outing as the character. I think we finally get to see like who Brie Larson's take on this character. It's I think it's kind of common knowledge by now that she shot her in-game scenes before they shot Captain Marvel. So like before she really gets to have time with this character, she's shooting, her part in an Avengers movie. And then you get the Captain Marvel movie where she has like this amnesia thing throughout the whole time. So like we don't get much screen time of like who she is, who she becomes, her personality, but we get loads of it here. I love her relationship with the other two women. Obviously her familial connection to Monica, and then her, she's the idol of Kamala. She kind of has to learn to be somewhat like a mentor to her. But mostly she just likes having people around like to bond with and hang out with. And, she's been kind of on a solo mission for, I don't know, decades, like since the 90s. Like she's kind of been on her own for a long time. So to see like her slowly kind of come out of her shell and have some excitement and have some like bonding time. And I think if I sum it up in one shot, it's whenever like they're herding the cats and she just runs with her arms straight out trying to catch a cat. Like, I'm glad we finally get to see her do that on screen. Just personality, finally at the forefront. So, again, my favorite outing of her as Captain Marvel so far.
I agree. I think she's pretty good in Endgame. Like that scene where like she like flies in and blows up a whole spaceship and then lands, and she's like, "Hey, Peter Parker, you got something for me?" And we were all like, "Oh, this better not awaken anything in me." But it's also very limited in that screen time for the Avengers movies. She's not given a whole lot to do there. So I agree that here's, I think, where she finally gets to kind of dive into like sink her teeth into it and kind of really find that balance. And I think it works really, really well. It's kind of wild to me that there's as much criticism about Brie Larson as there is. I think she's quite good. And I think here she's, like I said, in full like control of everything, except the powers that she keeps switching with others. But
is it worse? We might have some listeners that have like a bad taste in the mouth about Brie Larson, who have never like bothered to look at. I'll just say this because we don't need to go down this rabbit hole. If you have issues with Brie Larson, just make sure like you actually look at her interviews and her words and what she said, and see if you agree or disagree with those opinions versus the echoes and criticisms and fallout from that. I think I just want to say that.
Yeah, in short, don't. That's a nice way of saying that. I would agree with the notion of look into what was said for yourself. Don't really listen to what somebody else told you she said, because you're going to get filters through that. You're going to get biases through that.
Someone's interpretation
And I would say that generally speaking, the things of which she has been accused are at best exaggerated or at worst just made up. It's not to say you can't have criticisms of her as a person for the stances she takes, all of that, but just that the things I tend to hear the most tend to be on the exaggerated side of things. And
agreed.
We can leave it at that.
Teyana Paris returns as Monica Rambeau. Now, this character begins in WandaVision. That's where she gets her powers. Well, I guess the character begins in Captain Marvel, where she's a young girl, but we see the grown-up version in WandaVision. We see her get her powers, and then she's reunited with Aunt Carol in this movie. Sort of the... Well, I wouldn't go as far as say maybe she's the heart of the team. Maybe that's Kamala. But I like the dynamics at play here. I like her reuniting with Carol. There's sort of a hesitancy for the two of them to finally come face to face. They're sort of circling each other's orbit, but then the events of this movie force them to finally reunite, and there's sort of an awkwardness there because they were once close, and Carol gets her powers and kind of disappears for 30 years. And I mean, you know, you've seen the movie, right? You guys know what happens here, but I like how she is basically like, I don't care that you're a superhero. I just want my family back. And it's a lesson for both of them to learn. And it's very sweet, Andrew.
It's very well done. And it kind of speaks to, you know, it's not, that's, you know, we make the joke all the time. We say something needlessly specific and then say, you know, it's a tale as old as time. But in this case, like that story of like the kind of, you know, the chosen family kind of staying away from each other for a bunch of imagined reasons when the thing that they really needed the whole time was each other. Like that is a story that's pretty much as old as time as far as just being a very common trope. Not that you can't still do it well. I think this movie does it very well, but just that is a very common thing where just, you know, in being so... You kind of forget what it is that being together brings. And that, you know, like you said, you know, you're not looking to be... She didn't want Captain Marvel. She wanted her Aunt Carol. That's what she wanted. And it's a very, very powerful thing.
Let's talk about this villain, Andrew. We have Zawi Ashton as Dar-Ben. This is a member of the Kree race who has it out for Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel destroyed the Supreme Being, the AI that controlled all the Kree, kind of left them stranded. You know, there's maybe a parallel here with a great, powerful force destabilizes a group of people, then leaves them to fend for themselves. The movie does not dive into that too much, but there is something to maybe read there. Then you know, Carol kind of has to recognize her faults and do what she can to make it right. But she creates a essential villain in the process. And like I said in the synopsis, like this is my favorite take on a villain, especially in a superhero movie. Black Panther, maybe the gold standard of this, where you look at that villain and you're like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, we got to stop you. But man, if I were in your shoes, I can't say I'd make very different Actions. So I like the setup we have here for a villain. I think she plays this character very well. The anger is there at all times, often blinding her from seeing maybe a more peaceful path or more fruitful path. I mean, she's hell bent on vengeance, but that's where the actions have led her.
Yep. Zoe Ashton is she's a really good actor. Seen her in a couple of different things. She was on a British sitcom called Fresh Meat for a great many years. She was in a movie that came out called Velvet Buzzsaw. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
It's the Nightcrawler follow-up, right? Same director as
so the guy that did Nightcrawler, who wrote and directed Nightcrawler, then did a movie called Velvet Buzzsaw, and it's the last
with the greatest
film
actor
he's
of all
done.
time.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
What'd you think of it? I haven't seen it.
I liked it. It's not Nightcrawler, and a lot of people, I think that's kind of a hesitation. It's definitely a different thing. Definitely over the top, ridiculous. I liked it.
Okay.
But always just wanted to call that one out. But that she's just a great actor. Appeared in a bunch of stuff. Is also engaged to Tom Hiddleston. Apparently, he gave advice on playing a Marvel villain, even though he's not a villain anymore, really. But yeah, I think this is an interesting character. Maybe a little bit more development with this would have made it. I think there was some people that thought it was a little undercooked, that the bones were all there, but it wasn't quite a stew yet. But
Sure.
To borrow some words of Carl Weathers, but it's still that mindset of like, you've done the thing that you thought was right, had repercussions, no matter how your intentions, and it speaks to that other thing that, like, you're talking about, like, kind of leaving them fend for themselves in the story that might be told there, but just that notion that even in doing the right thing, there can be fallout, and that, the intentions don't necessarily matter to those that are left to deal with that fallout. And so there's a lot of interesting threads there. The movie doesn't really, like you said, dive too deep into them, but I think Zoe does a great job bringing this character to life and acts as a really good foil for our heroes.
And of course, we have Samuel L. Jackson returning as Nick Fury, who is just having a great time. I love Samuel Jackson in this movie so much.
He's just having a blast. Like, you can tell that, like, every scene, like, you could even, like, if you told me that, like, Samuel L. Jackson was just sleepwalking through this, I would be like, I'm not even necessarily going to say that I think you're wrong, but just that Samuel L. Jackson even sleepwalking through something can be deeply entertaining. Like, at no point does he have to dig into anything deeper. He basically just gets to routinely deal with weird space hijinks between all these different people, and his job is basically to sit and react as you would expect Samuel L. Jackson to do so. And no one does that better than him.
There's this, just jump ahead a little bit, there's a scene where they keep swapping unintentionally, and ends up with Monica and Kamala, like, high in the sky, plummeting to Earth, about to, like, die in Kamala's backyard, and her family's all there watching, and it's a real intense scene. But they managed to swap at the last second, and they switch to Carol, and Carol crashes. And Samuel L. Jackson goes, "Oh, it's cool, it's just Carol," and then boom, the scene changes. It's like the editing is so perfect there. It's it's just Carol. Then boom, let's go see where the other characters are.
Oh, cool,
and
it's Carol.
His casual delivery, and of course he wouldn't be like stressed out about this is routine stuff that he's seen for decades at this point. But I love, there's sort of a parallel between, like, Nick Fury at one point being the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., assembling the Avengers, being like the front line of defense against the most powerful threats to the Earth, to now we're at a point in this universe where the capabilities of the heroes have far surpassed a need for S.H.I.E.L.D. And he's sort of this agent guy that gets to hang back and sort of monitor more intergalactic threats. And when we see him pop up in Spider-Man, like I said, Spider-Man 2, I forget the names of those movies, or here, he just gets to be like, laid back, and he gets to, like, be a guy that can finally relax after having the most stressful job for decades. And there's a similarity there with Samuel L. Jackson being like one of the faces of the MCU to being just another player, and we're just happy to see him from time to time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this does pick up. Is it the end of? It's the end of
Spider-Man.
One of the Spider-Man.
2. What's that one called? Far From Home, I think.
Far From Home.
With the
It's
greatest
where
actor
you
of all
see
time,
him up
Jake
on
Gyllenhaal.
it's where you see him up on the spaceship of like,
Yeah.
and he's just chilling, like in his flip
Because
flops and everything.
it's been a scroll throughout the whole movie as Samuel Jackson.
That's what the
And
reveal
he's
is.
been
but,
on vacation in space, and now we see that he's working for Saber.
Yep. And it's pretty funny. I love Samuel L. Jackson. He's having a blast throughout this movie. It's infectious.
And then I think we can talk about them all together, but Kamala Khan's family, which is like the second best thing about this character after the great casting we talked about already. But I hope anytime we see Kamala, we always have scenes of her family, because it's just wonderful. Zenobia Shroff plays Kamala's mom, Mohan Kapoor as Kamala's dad, Sagar Shaikh as her brother. I really hope I'm pronouncing these closely. But I love this family. I love their dynamic. I love the aloof older brother who doesn't seem to be too impressed. I love her parents that just want her to be safe and don't really care about her having to save the world. There's the sort of ride that line between like overprotective, but obviously very supportive and caring. And they're just sweet as can be and hilarious. And they've popped up. We saw the dad pop up in Daredevil. I don't think you've watched that series yet, but there's a bottle episode of Daredevil Born Again where it's just Daredevil trapped in a bank that Kamala's dad works at. And it's wonderful. You could literally just watch that episode on its own. I highly recommend it. But I love this. I love this family. I love the dynamic. It can't have too much of them.
No, I agree. They're and I think they're part of the appeal of the character is just that family dynamic you have on top of it. There's so many superheroes where just like a family tragedy is this massive part of their story. Like Peter Parker, like his parents are gone already, and then he loses his uncle, and then he's got his aunt, and that's the whole thing. Like even on like the DC side of things, like Batman's parents being dead is a huge factor of his character.
Superman's
Superman's whole planet is gone, and his dad dies most of the time. Like, the Flash, they changed his character so that, his dad got framed for murdering his mother, a change that I've never cared for, to be very clear. The Flash does not need to be Batman, guys. But even Green Lantern, like the death of his father, like there's so many characters where the family tragedy is this driving force, and Marvel's not really any exception. Like you look, Steve Rogers wakes up and everybody he knows is gone, and even Thor, like with the Asgardian aspects, his father dies, his mother dies, different pieces of it. Obviously, Tony Stark, his father getting killed by Winter Soldier in the MCU, but even in general, just his father dying in the mainstream comics. Like, so to have a character whose family is not all still alive, but are also a key aspect to that character's dynamic, is refreshing on its own. Just on a base level of like, oh, cool, here's a character that has a family that isn't dead, that are a huge part of their drive as a character. And then you add in the fact that these people are all extremely good at playing these roles, and it's a huge part of the success of the character, especially on screen, I think. So I love all three of them. They're fantastic, especially here as they get kind of sucked into wild, weird things that they never could have suspected, like going up into space and things like that. It's great. It's fantastic.
That covers our main players. There's a few more maybe we can talk about as we go through scenes, a couple fun cameos. But Andrew, let's do just that. Let's jump into the scenes of this film. And of course, we're going to start with the best scene of the movie, or at least our personal favorite. So kick us off here. When is this movie firing at all cylinders? What is your favorite scene in the Marvels?
I could pick the whole movie, honestly. But I think the scene that I think I like the most, and it's not even necessarily like an action sequence, but there's a montage set to Intergalactic by the Beastie Boys. That's the three of them.
Good.
That's basically the three of them figuring it out, basically figuring out how the switching all works, trying to master the switching, trying to figure out like how we can use this to our advantage. And it just shows the chemistry between the characters. It shows the bond that they've all started to take throughout the course of this film. And it shows that, they're working as a team, as a group together to try to figure out how they can handle all of this. And that's just, I'm just smiling like a doofus that whole time that scene is playing, because it's just like, if the movie is distilled into one scene, it's that. The three of them working together, figuring it out, and then knowing that they can work together to take on the next thing. And it's just wonderful.
This is such a good pick, Andrew. I mean, my note just says intergalactic swapping montage is adorable. That's exactly how I feel about this. Like, it's them learning to swap. And by the way, them swapping powers, this is my first time watching the movie since theaters, and I couldn't remember if they like get untangled like halfway through or whatever. It's the whole movie. And it's awesome. Like, it never gets old. Them like action scenes or fight scenes where they swap places, but them like trying to use it, trying to master it, doing like the double jump rope, or just getting the timing down. Like when it's like 1, 2, 3 swap, but the other two girls swap on 3, and like, why would you do? She's like, yeah, I get it now. I'm sorry. There's one specific moment that I love, and it kind of goes back to like me talking about, we finally get to see some more of Carol's like personality. It's when it's just Carol and Monica swapping, and they're counting it down, and right before they swap, Carol kicks her feet up. So whenever Monica takes her place, she falls to the ground because her feet are up unexpectedly. And it's just like Carol pulling a fun little prank in the, in the middle of this moment. It's so good. I don't usually do this, but I dug in a little bit to some of the criticism of this movie, kind of see what people were saying. Yeah, and I'm talking about like movie critics, not just online discourse. And something else I'll bring up routinely, I think it might even be in like the Rotten Tomatoes synopsis, is something about like uneven tone or tone shifts. I wholeheartedly, I respectfully disagree. And I think this is something that the MCU has struggled with at times. I think if people say that about Thor: Love and Thunder, I think it's a little bit more apt there. I think you have like a super dark villain there, but you also want to have the fun, goofy stuff. And I could say like in Clash here, but like this movie has like a fun, brisk, heartwarming tone consistently. I mean, there is a few dark things, and I feel like they get their appropriate time, and then we're back consistently at this fun tone, and I think it runs throughout. Like, the fact that we're at this point in the movie, we don't have them sitting around brooding, worried about our world ending. We have them like enjoying their time together, learning their powers. Like, I love that. I don't know. I love the tone of this movie. I love how happy the characters are, how infectious it is. And this scene, this montage that you're highlighting as your favorite, it's a great example of that, Andrew.
Thank you. That's what I was going for. No, I've always been a little surprised, and we've spoken before about how like the sheen of the MCU has worn off, and how the standards that it's held to seem to be different now than they were 10 years ago. Just that notion of like,
which is fair. I want to say, like, it's like,
yeah. Because like to me, Captain Marvel, or the Marvels rather, is like upper half of the MCU. Like, easily.
yeah.
Like, it's just great on every front. There's movies that I know got a positive reception more than this one that made 6 times as much money. And some of that isn't, like you said, it's not invalid that the standards are different, that the mindset is different. But at the same time, like, I think it was Paul Scheer. Paul Scheer he does How Did This Get Made with a couple of others, and he's just a bit character actor that you've seen in probably thousands of things.
You're not asking me if I knew who Paul Scheer is, are you, Andrew?
I don't know.
The amount of times I've recommended One Man's Trash to you with just Paul Scheer on
I've never
Chris
seen
Gethin's
it.
podcast.
I don't know that Paul Scheer is in it.
It's Paul Scheer and Jason Mantzoukas. We've talked about this so many times. We just talked about Popstar and like Paul Scheer's the line delivery.
No.
Yes, I know
Anyway,
Paul Scheer is, Andrew, yes.
Good. So, a simple yes would be fine. But
watch One Man's Trash.
Watch Taskmaster starring Jason Mantzoukas, Series 19. But,
I watched the first episode, which I saw on YouTube.
They're all
How do you watch this? You can watch it all on YouTube?
Whole thing's
Anytime
on YouTube.
I hear about like a popular British show, I'm like, oh, well, I won't be able to watch that. It's on
Taskmaster
YouTube.
specifically
Okay.
Every single series, all of them is on YouTube. The one with Jason Mantzoukas just finished. Like Friday was the last episode. So that
Well,
was
I
they're
watched.
all very, very funny.
Would
but
you
his
recommend
series-
starting like season 1, episode 1?
I would. You can finish this current one for sure if you like
Okay.
Jason Mantzoukas and you like his chaotic energy. I think this series 19 has been like pointed to by people as like one of the best. The group is
Okay.
very, very good. The group is very, very funny. I have my favorite series. There's all sorts of, if you know any British comedians, some of them have probably appeared on Taskmaster by this point. But anyway, Paul Scheer, I remember he put out a video that was talking about the Marvel and how there were people just like, this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And he truly was kind of baffled by it. Like, and it was kind of odd because I know it's hip now to be like, the MCU, it's kind of, it's not what it used to be. But like, even he was just kind of like, I don't get it. He's like, this movie's fine. Like, at worst, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I really don't understand people that are like, this movie sucks and deserves to fail, which is another thread that you heard about it a little bit because of various things that people were like, it doesn't deserve to make money, which is a very strange mindset to take regarding something that doesn't impact you. But it was refreshing to see that somebody was kind of like, yeah, you guys understand this is a little weird, right? Like, it's a little weird, the discourse around this movie, but also just kind of say like, this movie's like good, like it's fun, like I don't really understand what else you're expecting from it, like and so it's been weird. And the discourse around the MCU is very much changed. Like, obviously, Phase 4, Phase 5, Phase 6. Phase 6 has just kind of started, but like Phase 4 and Phase 5 had some misfires, largely on the TV side, I think, with a couple of movies that just didn't really succeed. There was too much content for a lot of people. And I think that was actually the issue that became with the shows. I think it was less that the shows tied in. It's that there was a point where, like, it was 4 movies a year and 4 shows a year. And people were just like, what is going on? There was just so much content coming out at once that it became almost impossible to keep up with it. And now they've pushed back Doomsday and Secret Wars. We know Spider-Man 4 is going to be coming out in between now, which some interesting twists regarding that one. I don't know if you've heard any of the stories about it.
I have no idea what you're talking about right now. So do I want to keep it that way?
I don't know. Do you?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Some casting announcements. But
Yeah,
it's
I've not heard anything. Nope.
But so we know there's stuff coming. People are hoping that it's kind of a return to form. Sounds like Fantastic Four is going to be the make or break for a lot of people. Like, if Fantastic Four is good, people are kind of in the mindset of like, okay, maybe we're back on the right track. But if Fantastic Four is another misfire, then people are kind of like, all right, what do you do now? But here's the thing. Through Secret Wars, it's all going to come out. After that, who knows? But here's what I can promise you. Everybody, for the rest of the time, that most annoying guy you know, is going to talk about how it was never as good as it was at Endgame, pretending that he didn't cheer and cry when Andrew Garfield showed up in No Way Home. So, anyway, I lost the sauce. Go on.
I think it's time for me to talk about my favorite scene of the movie, which is hard to choose, honestly. I think I'm just going to say the first swapping fight. Whenever they're, like, in completely different locations. You have, like, Carol on a Kree ship, but they swap and suddenly Kamala's on this spacecraft and she's like, has no idea the context. There's that great scene that they used in the trailers and the marketing where she appears on the ship, some Kree run around the corner with their guns out, and Goose, the cat next to her, his tentacles fly out and eat those guys, and her oh my god reaction is so perfect. Like, if you just want to know like why Iman is perfect as Kama, like that 5-second scene, her reaction to that cat is wonderful, and that kicks off the tone for the rest of this movie. There's this fun, like, the fight scenes are genuinely like so well choreographed and fascinating to watch, like, you know, them swapping mid punch and stuff, but also like the character moments and their reactions and them trying to figure out like, it's just wonderful. And like I said, so the whole movie, like every fight scene is them swapping. Like, at first it's them swapping unintentionally, and then they learn to master it and use it to their advantage. We also have, you know, Kamala was at home when this started, and eventually some Kree wind up via Goose in her home, and so you have Monica and Carol appearing in Kamala's home, fighting in the living room with Kamala's family like caught in the middle. This is another great example of tone, because like even though like we have civilians like in danger with aliens in their home, we're having fun. Like we're not fearing for the life. We're enjoying the chaos and mayhem of the unintentional swapping, and that's the whole tone of this. So I think that kicks off the movie. It kicks off the tone. It sets the stage. Like if you're not on board after this scene, you can turn it off, because this is setting up for the rest of the movie. But if you do enjoy this, and it's hard for me to wrap my head around someone not having fun watching this, but if you do enjoy this, like you're in for a treat, because this is what you got the rest of the movie.
I agree. It's a good pick. To be very clear. You just said everything I would have said. These sequences, especially the switching sequence here, like it's really getting you like a dive into the characters, because the three of them don't know what's going on yet, but like Nick Fury is like watching it happen in front of him, and I love when like somebody comes up just like, I think when I activate my powers, I'm switching place, and he's like, strong theory, like because he knows exactly that. He already knows that's what's happening. He's got no question that it is. And so his reactions here make it all the better. Her family kind of reacting to everything. It's just wonderful. This whole movie is wonderful. I don't get it. I don't understand. It's such a blast.
This initial swapping thing is what it ends with Kamala and Monica falling from the sky, the scene I mentioned earlier. But Nick Fury at first is trying to tell Monica she needs to fly up and save Kamala. And Monica's like, I haven't really mastered flying yet. Like, I don't know how to do that. And he's trying to tell her, he's like, use your core. Oh, and he like crouches down, like flexing, like he's going to teach her how to fly. Oh, wonderful. Like I said, like, I mean, sleepwalking is maybe harsh, but I understand what you're saying. Like Samuel Jackson just showing up, having fun. Hey, what are my lines? Yeah, I got this. Like that's kind of the tone, the laid back tone, and it's so wonderful. He's just such a fun little spice throughout this movie. Tessa Thompson has a cameo as Valkyrie, which is like just a one scene cameo, which she I don't know what the right term is. She travels to the ship via the Bifrost, and she shows up like in a suit, in a black and white suit. And friend of the show, my wife, is like, she was literally on the set of Men in Black International and just teleports into this movie and then back out, which I thought was pretty good. This is the one, like, I feel okay throwing a few like mild criticisms out about this movie, because we both love it and we're here to talk about the positives and whatever. There is this moment where we see the Skrulls planet collapsing because the Krees are stealing the resources, and the Marvels are trying to get them evacuated and save them, and they have to just save as many as they can. Like, it's very clear that there's a genocide basically happens. Like, they can't save all of them, and it is, I think the movie handles it appropriately. It gives it like the weight it deserves, but maybe not the time. Like, we don't sit in this sadness for too long, but given the high death toll and the effect that it's having on Kamala, who is clearly most affected by it, she's like, how could we just leave them? How can we just not try harder? Like, it's tough. And this is what ends with them calling Valkyrie to take all of the Skrulls, presumably, to New Asgard, which I think is really fun synergy with where the MCU is right now. Like, you know, you might say, hey, this is too much homework for me to understand what's going on, but you know, that is what it is. But if you know all the pieces and you understand what's happening here, it's very cool. Like, in a lot of ways, the MCU has become like comic books, and the joy of reading comic books from a shared universe. We have characters casually pop up for a scene or two, and storylines blend together. Like, there is a joy in that. Now, movies aren't comic books, and I get it if you don't want to watch 30 movies to have that joy. That's sort of beside my point here. But as someone who has all the appropriate knowledge of the MCU to enjoy the scene for what it is, I like the Tessa Thompson cameo. And it's fun that, she has a working relationship with our director, that she was able to organically work her way into the story. That's very cool. I do think the scroll scenes are very effective. Maybe we could have sat in the sadness a little bit longer, but I do think that is a powerful scene where they have to come to terms with the fact that a lot of them are dying, and ultimately Carol does feel like all of this is on her for destabilizing the Kree Empire.
I agree. It's heavy stuff. And this adds to the whole kind of guilt that Carol feels, and the nickname that she's earned from the Kree called Annihilator, because her destroying the AI that governed their planet basically has led to its destruction. So as she feels these things more and more, she just feels this guilt and this weight on her shoulders more and more, which is part of what keeps her away from everything. She's basically running away from her problem, or throwing herself into work, or whatever you want to call it. And it's, like I said, it's a tough thing, what's basically happening. But the movie does, like I said, treats it with a pretty heavy weight. And like you said, when you see these characters kind of come in and out, she's not, the Valkyrie is not the only character that we get some spot surprise cameos from here, including one quite surprising, but that we'll talk about in a bit, I'm sure. It's fun to see. I see why people get upset by it, but at the same time, something like this, I think, is relatively harmless as far as like this kind of cameo.
Yeah, I agree. Andrew, a scene that I was considering my favorite. I love so many about this, the movie. But after your favorite scene, the intergalactic montage, they learn to master the swapping powers. They decide to make a stand against the villain. Carol knows where she's going next. She's going to a planet that is covered in water, so she can steal the water for Hala, the Kree planet. And they want to get there first and stop her. But once the Marvels arrive on this planet, we learn that Carol has a history with this planet, which, let me pause right there real quick. I think it's really cool that Captain Marvel has like a 30-year history that we are not privy to. Like, we saw her in the 90s, we saw her show up in Endgame, and she is just always off-world, working on stuff throughout the universe, and there's not a TV show or series of movies exploring that, which would be cool, but I kind of like that there's just a whole history we can just tap into, like, as needed. I love, it makes the world and the universe feel so big, knowing that this character has been off on these off-world adventures, that we didn't get to see. I think that's a really fun aspect of the character, and this movie does a great job tapping into things like that. And this is a great example of it. They arrive on this water world. Kevin Costner isn't there, but instead a race of people who their language is song. So they sing to communicate and dance and dress extravagantly. This is such a beautiful scene of the movie. The colors are so bright and vibrant. The MCU has been criticized plenty of times for having the same washed out visuals. I think this scene stands in opposition of that, maybe in response to that criticism. It looks wonderful. Great scene to watch in your nice 4K TV. And we learned that Captain Marvel is a Disney princess, Andrew. She has married their king. It's a marriage of convenience, I think she might have said. Like, it was part of a peace treaty. Again, a whole like backstory we don't really learn much about. Just like the characters of Monica and Kamala that are accompanying her here to this planet. And we get the scene of her like wearing an extravagant dress and singing and doing a big dance number, and I'm just like smiling ear to ear this whole time. Like, this is such a fun, wild concept. It's fun without being goofy, even though it is objectively a little silly. Like, it's great. Maybe this is my favorite scene in the movie. I don't know. I picked the fight scene earlier, but I really, really, really love this scene. And quick shout out to Park Seo-joon, who plays the prince here, Prince Yan. Just an absolutely beautiful man. Really shines in the singing and dancing and fighting later. But what a wonderful little scene here, Andrew.
Absolutely. Just like a wild twist that you never saw coming, and just adds, like you said, a really unique flavor. Kind of just creates a whole new different thing that you just weren't expecting. And but it's like I said, it's a bright, vibrant scene. It stands out. It's just very, very fun. It, like you said, you talk about that kind of muted color palette that everybody's come to associate. And what's odd to me though is that Carol's costume is in the muted tones when nothing else on the planet is. But
That's
like,
true. Yeah, the
like
characters get new
Kamala's
costumes
costume
there.
is like bright red and blue. And,
Yeah.
Monica gets like the bright, like kind of very photon-esque black and white suit, and then Carol's in this very like super navy, super burgundy version of her suit, and I'm less like, it's just, I guess they want to contrast. I don't know, but this whole sequence just wonderful. Just again, we get another big cool fight here where there's a lot of switching, where they're still they're in better control of it, but they're still trying to figure it out, and it's still causing issues. And yeah, just a blast. This whole sequence.
Nick Fury aboard the space station we've seen throughout the movie. There's sort of a B plot going there where they discover these mysterious eggs in the walls. It gets to a point where they need to evacuate this space station. They realize the eggs are actually laid by Goose, the cat, who's, really just an alien that looks like a cat. And their evacuation plan is for Goose and all of Goose's babies to eat the people aboard the ship so they can just get rid of a few dozen cats versus a few hundred people. Andrew, I can't tell you how much I love this. Now,
It's a blast.
I don't understand how an alien can safely eat and regurgitate a person without that person dying, and I don't care. Just like I don't really understand Monica's powers. I don't really understand how they're entangled and swapping. The movie says this is the way this thing works, and because it's alien technology and aliens that I should not be able to comprehend, I'm totally okay with that. I kind of imagine that Goose has like a portal within his throat, because that explains like how he doesn't weigh 500 pounds and they're actually going somewhere else. I don't know. Maybe it's how Pokeballs work. I don't know. But what I do know is this scene of it's shot like a horror film. It's playing music like it's a dramatic opera, and the end result is a very, very fun montage of people running for their life and getting gobbled up by cute, adorable cats, and then our superheroes running after the cats and trying to shoo them into a spacecraft. And all the little pieces that come together to make a scene as ridiculous as this happen on screen and like make sense and be a good time. I'm in awe of the craft in this. Maybe this is my favorite scene of the movie, Andrew. Maybe this is the best one. I don't know. But I as someone who, let me say this respectfully, I'm not a cat person. I still find a lot of joy in this scene.
It's very, very funny. I love when like Nick Fury is explaining to Carol what they're gonna do, and like there's all the cats running around because the Flurkins basically, Goose laid a bunch of eggs that look kind of like brains, and then they all hatch, and they're all just cats. And he just realizes that to evacuate the spaceship, it is way easier to evacuate a family of cats than 100 people. So they're just having the Flurkins eat people because the Flurkins just spit you back up. They don't actually eat you. And so I just love that he like explains it, and Carol's like kind of going along with it and kind of questioning it, and then she's basically like, so we're hurting cats. And he's like, he just holds up the cat and she just goes, come here, kitty, and runs after one of them. And I'm like, just wonderful. I love that these things are cats. I have 2 cats. They are my favorite. I had a foster cat that I still miss dearly, which just tells me that I should never foster cats because I'm going to get too attached to them and be really sad when they're gone forever. But and then just even when they're on the spaceship back down and like the Kamala's family's in there and they're all just giving him lip. I love when the brother is like praying in Arabic, and he's just like, are you praying? And the brother kind of stops and kind of looks embarrassed. He's like, no, don't stop. We need all the help we can get.
Yeah. Amen.
It's really good. That's the chemistry that Fury has with Kamala's family too. I think comes through a lot too. Where like you said, I would assume, I don't want to say it was an easy payday for Nick Fury. I don't want to say acting's ever easy, but it's definitely like I said, it just kind of speaks to his ability though, that like even in something like this where it's very surface level for his character, he's still memorable, he's still funny, and he still is has that chemistry with all the different characters. And that's probably just speaking to the fact that Samuel L. Jackson is a really good actor, it turns out.
There's a great little visual moment here because the Kree ships are shaped like sort of diamond shaped. Diamond as in like the playing card, not like the gym. But they're they're very tall. Yeah, that's good. Like a tall diamond. And we know that the Kree are going to be going after Earth's sun. That's where they're going next. So we cut from them herding cats to a shot of the sun that fills the screen with the silhouette of a Kree ship in front of it. Andrew, it makes a giant cat's eye. I don't know if you caught that, but she cut to a big cat's eye, which is just a nice little like, boom, nice little visual flair there. It was a lot of fun.
Yep.
And this leads to our final conflict. The Marvels catch up with our villain before she destroys our sun. And we have and all the fight scenes are great. The three-way swapping, so cool. They managed to separate her from her weapon. What's the name of that weapon, Andrew? The Lee Pace's weapon? What is it? Ultimate something?
The universal weapon.
There it is.
That's all it's called.
But eventually our villain gets the upper hand where she takes the bang. We haven't talked about the bangle yet, but I don't know. There's powerful bangles in the universe. Kamala has one. Our villain has one. The villain takes it from Kamala. Now the villain has both bangles. But this is the part where she's kind of blinded by her vengeance and rage. These bangles are kind of like Infinity Stones, where like it's a lot of power for one person to hold. Some people are not capable of it, and when she tries to use it, she is not only evaporated but rips a hole in space-time. Andrew, don't you hate when that happens? The only person that can close it is Monica, with the help of the other two women powering her up. But she has to close it from the other side. Of course, that other side is a parallel universe, which we'll come back to. But the movie ends with them losing one of the team. They lose Monica. They know she's not dead, but she is gone.
Stranded.
So we have a little somber moment there at our finale. I think it's an interesting way to end it. Like I think we kind of get an exciting fight. But story-wise, this villain that's only driven by like revenge. I mean, she's driven by saving her race too. Don't get me wrong, but blinded by her revenge and anger, taking herself out like that, leading her down a dark path and ends her demise. I think is an appropriate finish to our character.
I think so. It is an interesting arc. That all of our characters kind of get to take here. Because by the end of the movie, everybody's kind of learned something. Like Carol has learned that the path that she's taken is not the way she should have done this. She moves back to Earth at the end of this movie, into the house that Monica and her mother used to have. Kamala has realized that, maybe there's a little bit of growing up that needs to be done, and she needs to move beyond just being a fan of something and kind of needs to understand that there are some greater responsibilities here.
Dude, I love the scene. This movie, much like the great series Ted Lasso, is about people becoming better versions of themselves. And I love there's a moment where all three of them like own their S a little bit. And Kamala is like, I'm sorry I went so hard when I first met you. I didn't give you enough room to like be a person. Like she put her on such a high pedestal, she wasn't allowing her to like be vulnerable or have flaws or whatever. And that's such a mature thing to realize. And I loved that little moment. So you touched on it. I just wanted to call it out.
No, it's exactly the point. And Monica has had that reconciliation with Carol as well and realized that the kind of resentment she's felt towards Carol was probably a little misplaced. And there was other things going on that probably contributed to that. And so that's what makes it so painful, that they finally all get on the same page, and then Monica gets lost to this parallel dimension. A multiverse, if you will. But it's a great arc for all these characters. And then Dar-Ben obviously just falls to the classic problem of she gets so consumed by vengeance that she ends up paying the ultimate cost because of it. Just always takes me back to Civil War when Black Panther is like, vengeance has consumed you, it's consumed them. I'm done letting it consume me. And it's this, it's not a lesson that, is necessarily going to be learned, because it's very easy to get blinded after you feel like you've been wrong and feel like the path forward is to
destroy
those who did it to you. But I believe it was Marcus Aurelius who said, true justice is in being unlike them who committed the offense.
Well said, Andrew. And the person you quoted. Well said.
He's dead. Fine.
That wraps up our Bane story. But we do have a couple... What's it called? Not exposition.
Well, teasers.
Hang on. There's a word I'm looking for. The end of a story. No. Like, conclusion. Epilogue. Couple epilogues here. There's a very fun scene that mirrors, intentionally mirrors the post-credit scene of Iron Man. But instead of Nick Fury recruiting Tony Stark, it is Kamala Khan recruiting Haley Stanfield, who plays Kate Bishop. She's, young Hawkeye. I don't think she has a superhero name. I mean, she's just Hawkeye. But she's from the Disney Plus TV show Hawkeye, bringing in yet a third TV show into this movie. So if people weren't watching those shows, they might be very confused about the end of this here. But regardless, Haley, she walks into her apartment. It's dark. Kamala's there in the shadows. And she even says the line. She says, "You just became part of a much larger universe. Putting together a team. I want you on it." Almost word for word what Nick Fury says in Iron Man, but then she says, "Please," which is just fun. Like, she's still like a kid in over her head, but it's obviously teasing Young Avengers, which is presumably coming at some point, but just pulling some of those threads together. And before we get to the other epilogue scene, I like this being here. Again, I watched the Disney Plus TV shows. I know who these characters are. If I didn't, I might feel differently about it. So I get that, if that's a criticism. But I don't think we've done this, but I want to make sure we haven't made it sound like anybody who is tired of the MCU or has criticisms of it is like wrong and you just don't get it. Because I have, growing pains. Like, it's happening. Like, you're not gonna be all in on all of it, most likely. But I do kind of get, you look at like phase 1, which kind of, not even phase, like all the way up through, Infinity War, Endgame, always felt like, if not totally linear, was heading all in one direction. Whereas it really exploded after that. And you get threads like, I don't know, the end of Shang-Chi has a 10 Rings tease. We have an X-Men tease that begins with, I don't know if it began with Doctor Strange or it began with Miss Marvel's TV show. It happens again here. We'll get to, you have, Kang and that whole thing. You've got the multiverse stuff. You've got the Dark Avengers, Thunderbolts. Like, at one point, there was like so many different ways things could be going, to the point where something gets teased and it doesn't get paid off for maybe 5 years. Maybe some stuff that still hasn't paid off years later. And I think that's where people can kind of get some of that fatigue. Speaking of Doctor Strange, who shows up at the end of that?
Charlize Theron.
Yeah. I mean, that, who knows when that's going to pay off. And I think it's just an adjustment to being like, this isn't the next thing the MCU is going to do. Because that was the case. It was like, at the end of Captain America, it teased Avengers. At the end of Iron Man 2, it teases Thor, the next movie. And it was very much like just teasing what's coming next. And it's not doing that anymore. It's setting up stuff that will pay off eventually at some point, but not like the next thing. And I think that has been, well, not, a criticism. And I kind of get that one, because that sometimes I just sit and think about all the stuff that's been brought up and hasn't paid off yet. And I'm like, well, where are they going? And I get the answer is maybe somewhere between I need to be more patient and maybe things got a little unfocused during the growing pains with the MCU. What do you think, Andrew?
I think it's very, very. I think it's mostly on brand because, like I said, like what's the post credits for Iron Man? It's the Avengers. What's the post credits for Incredible Hulk? It's Tony Stark. What's the post credits for Iron Man 2? It's Thor. What's the post credits for Thor? It's Captain America, or is it? I don't remember. And then the post credits for Captain America is just an Avengers trailer.
For Avengers.
Like it's literally, so the post credits for all of those first few movies were all just building to Avengers. Part of this, I think, is just the notion that when you were building to Infinity War, everything was building to that. Everything, there was a very clear thing that was established in Avengers, which was Thanos, that we were building towards at the end of all of it. And that just makes for a very easy roadmap. The Infinity Stones are all these easy MacGuffins. And I don't remember all the mid-credits and post-credits sequences of the Phase 1 off the top of my head. I know not all of them had something to do with the Infinity Stones. And some of the Infinity Stones we didn't even see till the Infinity War, basically. But the Phase 3 to 6, or Phase 4 to 6, has obviously been subject to a lot more scrutiny, obviously. And part of that is that, like, we know they've changed direction. Like, Thanos is established at the end of Avengers. Infinity War is where that's going. Now, the path there changed some. And we know it did, because things like Inhumans got announced and then didn't happen, and various things like that. Obviously, something like Spider-Man coming into the fray is not expected. We didn't, when the MCU began, Spider-Man was not an option. So, like, the path probably wasn't as calculated as we may have thought it was, but the result, the final standing, we knew where it was all going. We're in a situation now where, like, we knew this was supposed to be Kang. And, like, Kang is an integral part of the Young Avengers thing, which is, like, kind of why I'm a little interested in if we do pick that up and go with it somewhere. Now, you can do it without him, but one of the main characters of Young Avengers, in the comics at least, is Iron Lad, who is an adolescent version of Kang. So, like, that's a big thing. And if you're building to something with Kang, it would make sense that you're kind of going that path. Now, obviously, they seem to be building more of just like a team of young heroes, which is fine. They may not be going through the full route that they do with the comics, but knowing that we've changed direction, and also throwing in all of these television shows and throwing in all of these teases, like we just talked about how Thunderbolts takes like 5 different post-credit sequence essentially, and then threads them all together and brings them to a conclusion. But I heard people for years talking about how, like, well, they're not doing anything with this Val thing. What's the point? And so I think there is an aspect of patience to it. Like, the Tesseract is in Avengers. It doesn't pay off until Infinity War. Like, there's plenty of instances where there was a tease in Phase 1, but again, it kind of comes down to that one benefit of the doubt of just that notion of like, hey, we're going to let this play out and see where it goes because the quality was so high, versus just kind of an expectation that like, oh, we're probably getting to that pretty soon. Whereas Phase 2 or Phase, Arc 2, the Multiverse Saga, the changes in direction, the issues with quality, the issues, things like that, it's just shaken that faith. And I think there's just kind of general fatigue. I think fatigue is the right word. So when they see something that doesn't pay off in a year, like we had a tease at the end of Love and Thunder for Hercules, like, is that ever going to show up anywhere? Who knows?
I gotta believe. I at this point, I don't think any of the post-credits teases are going to be abandoned. I think we see Charlize again. I think we see Roy Kent again. Brett Goldstein, Hercules again. But I think an element of this is like we know so much real world behind the scenes stuff. Like the end of Eternals teases like 5 things. Like Game of Thrones guys becoming a knight. We tease Blade. We tease what's
Star
the
Fox.
One Direction guy? Yeah.
Star Fox. Who's Thanos' brother, I think, maybe? I don't remember.
I don't know when any of that's coming back. And Blade in particular, we know like behind the scenes stuff, that project has been stopped and started. It's had a release date. It's been taken off the books. There's recently a story going around that costumes for that movie were sold to the production of Sinners. So just kind of like if they're selling off like assets of the film, that's not a good sign. That might be something that doesn't happen, and that's a bummer. And it kind of gives you that feeling. It's like, well, you teased it, but it feels like maybe you don't even know where you're going when you're teasing it. You just wanted to get, Mahershala Ali's voice in there. So we'll see. Like I said, I'm staying optimistic at this point. I think all the stuff does pay off eventually, but I also think they might be doing a little course correction and maybe refocusing, especially, of course, with Avengers movies coming up, bringing the universe all back together. But Andrew, one last thing we got to discuss with this movie, though, is the proper post-credit scene. We see Monica Rambeau wake up in what looks like a hospital, but is actually a room in the X mansion. There is a woman there that looks like her mother, but is actually a mutant whose name I don't remember. But the big thing here is that the doctor is one Hank McCoy. It is
played
Beast
by
himself, voiced by, we should say, Kelsey Grammer. Because unlike in the Foxverse, it is not Kelsey Grammer in makeup. It is a full CG Beast. Hashtag PP. I hope he looks better when we see him again. But it is Beast. And I love that I love this Kelsey Grammer. Perfect voice for Beast. Like I like a lot what's happening here. But this is a full-on, not just tease of X-Men, but kind of telling us how they're going to do it to an extent. Like it's a parallel universe, apparently, where mutants exist, which I don't know. I mean, I kind of like, because we've talked about it recently in this show, like a universe that has both superheroes that are beloved and mutants that are hated is kind of hard to make sense of. So putting them all in a parallel universe kind of makes sense. But is it going to be a whole original line of movies that aren't connected? That's not likely. They're going to connect somehow. I don't know. We don't have all the answers yet, but it's exciting to see something so, after X-Men, mutants being teased for so long, we just see Beast there on screen, and kind of a good idea of how they're gonna bring it all together, huh?
Well, and it ties into, if you watch the Avengers Doomsday casting announcements, we know that Hank McCoy and several legacy X-Men characters will be in that movie. I believe they announced Kelsey Grammer, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Alan Cumming, Rebecca Romaine, James Marsden, Channing Tatum have all been announced to be in Avengers Doomsday. Now, a lot of people believe this is simply going to be Doctor Doom destroying a universe of which the X-Men are characters. Now, I don't remember if they've announced Monica's character for this movie. I don't remember, but I would assume there's a really good chance that her character factors in. Because this very well may be the universe that she's in that these characters are in. So it is. Who knows? We will see. But it is a clear appearance. And I have a friend who this reignited his interest in where this was going. The fact that they just outright were like, boom, here's one of the X-Men. Interacting kind of in a much more direct way. Versus Multiverse of Madness. But because Multiverse of Madness kind of closes that loop of what it presents with those characters by the end of that movie, whereas this is something very open-ended. So there's no telling where it goes. But yeah, Kelsey Grammer's got a perfect voice for Beast. Cool to see him back. And it's amazing to me that and I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, they undid Logan. Oh God. But it is interesting to me that we will get yet one more Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen send off as those characters. Now, what I am hoping for, obviously, Channing Tatum being there is kind of cool. I hope we get a genuine awesome moment with James Marsden as Cyclops, because he deserves it. He really of all the things that have happened throughout these movies, like, we need that, like, Cyclops level thing where, like, Cyclops just gets to unleash. Now, I still presume Doctor Doom's going to kill him, but that's just me guessing, folks. I'm not reading spoilers. I just presume that the X-Men are going to be fodder for Doctor Doom in this movie. But I would like Cyclops to get at least a couple of moments to be a big deal.
Over in our Discord, we did have some listeners write in with their positive thoughts on this movie. Andrew Philly Yeat Steak said, the fight choreography is genuinely good? There's a question mark there. Like they're maybe surprised by how good it was. I was impressed by the fight scenes in a way that I haven't been from Marvel in a while, with the exception of Shang-Chi. And then Mike Lee chimes in and says, much like the recent Thunderbolts movie, The Marvels is a genuinely great MCU movie that just didn't jive with everyone. I'm sure there were the legion of fanboys who decidedly skipped this one, but I was genuinely surprised the public at large did too. Brie Larson is as great as ever. Teyana Paris is doing good work, but Iman Vellani and her family steal the show for me. Miss Marvel is one of my top MCU shows, and I'm very happy they are using their fantastic cast across the TV and film Marvel universe. Groffles chimes in and said, no notes. I also enjoyed Miss Marvel cast edition here a lot. So there's some love for this movie amongst our listeners. Well-deserved. I say, you say, we like this movie. It's a good movie. We spent some time this episode talking about MCU fatigue and maybe some criticisms that make a lot of sense. But in this guy's opinion, in this humble podcaster's opinion, The Marvels is not indicative of any of the MCU's issues at the moment.
I agree.
Two down, two to go, Andrew, in comic book month. Oh, three to go. Three to go. Oh my gosh, it's a long month.
Terrible.
3 to go. All right. Well, I'm excited. This is a good one. I'm looking at our lineup and I'm thinking, man, sometimes these months are easier than others. Let's just say. Before we get to the next comic book movie, though, it is, of course, time to enter AA. It is time for Ask Andrew, the part of the show where I get to ask you a question and you have to answer it. That's the way it works. If you want to leave a question for Andrew, you can do so by joining our Discord. There's a link in the show notes. Come and join us. Join the community. It's a good time. It's a good hang. You can leave positive thoughts on movies we're covering in the future. And of course, like I said, ask Andrew a question. This week, your question is coming from Mike Lynch. Not only did he like The Marvels, but he wants to ask you, is there a comic book panel you would get tattooed on your back?
No.
No. Yeah, I knew that answer because I'm pretty certain, Andrew, you have no tattoos currently, correct?
Correct.
At this point in your life, I'm going to assume if you haven't decided to get a tattoo yet, you aren't going to be a person that gets tattoos. Is that safe to assume?
There's one I've considered, but
it wasn't a
would
comic
not be
book
anything
panel?
of that. No.
Or it was a comic book panel, but you're not getting it on your back?
No, it was not a comic book panel at all. It was the Scottish clan that my family came from. I was gonna think about getting their crest on like my back shoulder, but I read one that shoulder tattoos are apparently painful as all get out, and two, I just didn't.
But you're a ginger, Andrew. You have a very good pain tolerance, so you're fine.
No,
tattoos
the
probably
anesthesia
tickle.
doesn't work as well. That's the problem. Anesthesia works less effectively. If I were to get a panel tattooed on myself, which I'm not going to, but if I were going to do that, it would be from an issue of Jack Kirby's OMAC. Because there's an issue.
Okay, tell me what to Google so I can see this.
I'm trying to specifically see what it would be right now. I'm just going to text it to you. Is that okay? Or would you like
Sure.
me to Discord it to you? So if this will work, I would obviously clean this up a little bit. But
I just Google image Jack Kirby OMAC. And I'm scrolling through these and I'm very curious which one is tattoo. Okay, text is coming through. Let's see what you got here, Andrew. Oh, that's rad. Okay.
So
What is the
issue-
significance of this?
So it's OMAC number 3 or number 2, I think, but OMAC's trying to go into this city and the military is like, no, you can't go into this city. And OMAC's like, oh no, and punches 7 guys at once. And so just the sheer fact that 1, it's OMAC punching 7 guys at once. 2, it's Jack Kirby's art, and 3, just yeah, I love the insanity of that panel. That might still be my Facebook cover photo on Facebook. It is. It's just a panel that I love. I love Jack Kirby's art. I love OMAC because OMAC is basically just Captain America. Except Captain America looks like a knight. OMAC looks more like a Roman soldier. But it's the same idea of like a diminutive person is given these superpowers. But it's a similar concept, just a very different execution. I love those original Jack Kirby issues. They're very, very good. DC's reused OMAC as a various thing over the years, but just that issue of OMAC, I think it's number. If you search Jack Kirby OMAC splash page, it's the 4th image that shows up for me. But
We'll put it on our Discord too.
I love it. It's just OMAC punching 7 guys at once. I would never do it, but if I were, it'd be that.
Okay, that would be a good, across the back. Be ridiculous.
I need space. You'd need the space, so it makes sense.
Was not getting tattooed a conscious a conscious decision? Like, I am not going to be a person that has tattoos, or just never really had interest strong enough to make it happen. You're not against it, but it's not going to happen.
It's not something that I've ever been stunned on. Like, no ink will touch my body. Like, it's never been that kind of thing. I do very much had that realization of when you're in your 20s, you're just like, oh, I could get like a Green Lantern symbol tattooed on my shoulder. And I was like, yeah, but then you have a Green Lantern symbol on your body for the rest of your life, dummy.
Can't imagine being young
Green
and getting a
Lantern
superhero's logo tattooed on you
tattooed
forever.
on your body. Like, it's a ridiculous thing,
God.
right? You'd never do that. You'd certainly never go to an auto show where they have Batmobiles and then take your shirt off to take a photo. You'd definitely never do that either. No, and that's, again, no shade to anybody that has, to be very, very clear here. You're doing pretty well for yourself, it would appear. But I just never could dedicate to something where I was like, yeah, I definitely want to do that. Like, it just never got there. And then now I'm 37 and I'm tired all the time, and it's just I turned 38 this month and I'm more tired than ever. So I'd rather buy jerseys, I guess.
I love your pick, I gotta say, for a comic book panel you to get tattooed. Again, we'll put it on our Discord. You gotta check this out. I thought you were just gonna say nope, and then we're gonna end the episode. But
I had to give you a
so
little
glad.
bit more than that.
Well, I'm so glad that you had a comic book panel come to mind. That was a great deep pull and a wonderful image and great answer, Andrew. That's why we ask you these questions, Andrew. You never know what's gonna happen. Next week we change universes. We're hopping over to DC. Talking about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the Aquaman sequel. Me, at the time of this recording, I've not seen the first Aquaman movie. I got 2 movies to watch. I got to watch that first one. Make sure I go in with full context.
The final film of the DCEU.
Wow. Heck of a thing, Andrew. Heck of a thing. We'll have lots to say about it. That's next week. Until then, just remember, maybe not every movie is great,
but all movies have greatness.
Thank you to Mark Benavides for singing our theme song. Check him out on Instagram at NotThatMarkAnthony. Thanks to Mitch for the music. You can check him out on Twitter at I'm a Biggie Boy. Check our show notes for the SoundCloud link, and check out our store on TeePublic for some Best of the Rest merch. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. That's the only way that we grow. Follow us on social media at BOTRcast. Thank you.